Metropolitan Railway 1 is an E-Class 044 tank engine built in 1898 at the Met's own Neasden Works. She and the other 6 E-Class engines were the last steam engines built at Neasden. She was built as a replacement for A-Class 440 tank engine number 1, which was scrapped after an accident at Baker Street. She was planned to be numbered 79, but was renumbered to 1 before completion. Met 1 and her classmates proved very successful and were more than capable of doing the work asked of them. On the 4th of July 1904, gaily decorated with flags and bunting, she headed the first passenger train on the opening of the Uxbridge branch from Harrow-on-the-Hill. The completion of the Metropolitan Railway's electrification program made more engines of the same type unnecessary, and also led to the removal of the condensing apparatus, which had been fitted for working in the underground tunnels. For over 20 years, these locomotives were the mainstay of the Metropolitan services to Aylesbury, and still appeared after the introduction of larger engines, such as the H-Class tanks, in the 1920s. She was taken into London Transport stock when the Metropolitan was taken over by the London Passenger Transport Board on the 13th of April, 1933. Met 1 became London Transport L44. Her duties at this time included passenger services on the Chesham branch, pilot engine at Rickmansworth, and goods transfer and engineering trains around Neasden. L44 and sisters L46 and L48 frequently worked the Baker Street to Aylesbury trains, possibly even getting as far as Quainton Road. Rumor has it that L44 helped evacuate children during bombings in the early years of World War II, though this hasn't been confirmed. L44 also became popular on tours and specials, including the 50th Jubilee of the Uxbridge Line and the Railway World Special, which did reach Quainton. Met 1, aka L44, of course, survived to work the last steam train on the Chesham branch in 1960, and the last steam-hauled passenger train anywhere on London Transport in 1961, although it would be another 2 years before the locomotive was withdrawn. After a final moment of glory, when she took part in the Metropolitan Centenary Parade at Neasden on the 23rd of May, 1963, where she hauled 4 bogie coaches and a milk van, she was finally withdrawn. An appeal, the Met Tank Appeal Fund, was set up in 1962, originally to purchase the Metropolitan Railway F-Class 062 tank engine number 93, which had been renumbered to L52 when it was taken into London Transport ownership. This appeal changed its focus, however, as it was found that L52 had a cracked frame, and L44 was selected instead. The Met Tank Appeal Fund was held by the committee members of the London Railway Preservation Society, which would later be renamed to the Quainton Railway Society. Following her final activities for London Transport, L44 was purchased by the Quainton Railway Society and the Met Tank Appeal Fund. L44 was delivered in steam on the 26th of March, 1964, to the Society's temporary store in Skimpot Lane, London. Whilst at this depot, an attempt was made to prepare the locomotive for a live steam appearance at the Bedford Centenary Exhibition in October 1968. Some defective stables were replaced, and the Bedford Shed boilersmith made plans for a hydraulic test, but unfortunately the locomotive was not permitted to be in action for the journey or in steam at the exhibition. The locomotive was subsequently moved to Aylesbury, where she was stored for another 2 years. Later, she was transferred to Quainton on the 23rd of September, 1970, with a track slew from the main line into the down yard. Some initial preservation and investigatory work was done, but the first major overhaul started in earnest on the 13th of August, 1975, with the removal of the tanks and cab, followed by a boiler lift in February 1976. She was relettered and renumbered to Metropolitan Railway No. 1 and returned to service sometime in the early 1980s, and pulled short train rides at the Quainton Railway Society's Buckinghamshire Railway Centre in Quainton. For a number of years, Met 1 was maintained to the standard required of British Railways mainline running, and was periodically used for special steam excursions organized by London Underground over the old Metropolitan lines from her original birthplace in Neasden. These events were called Steam on the Met, and first took place in 1989, with Met 1 pulling a few coaches with the 1912-built Metropolitan Railway Bobo electric locomotive, number 12, nicknamed Sarah Siddons. Met 1 ran the first of these excursions with fellow Quainton resident Great Western Railway 9400 class 060 Pannier tank engine 9466. The two engines double-headed and participated in photo ops. Sometime in the 1990s, her boiler ticket expired, and a heavy overhaul of Met 1 was completed in 2001, with much of the work being completed at Bill Parker's flour mill restoration base, with her boiler certificate expiring in April 2011. The latest restoration of Met 1 was finished on the 21st of November 2012 with a steam test. Met 1 was then transported to Bitton on the Avon Valley Railway, where she went under initial running trials. Met 1 was then transported to the Severn Valley Railway for running-in trials from the 28th to 30th of November. Using 3 Mark I carriages, trials were completed at 25, 30, 40, and even 50 miles per hour. The loco was then transported to London, being at London Transport's Acton Depot on the 4th of December 2012. The first run on London Transport metals was undertaken in the early hours of the 16th of December 2012 from London Transport's Ealing Common Depot to Earl's Court via the District Line. On the 10th of January 2013, Met 1 hauled the recently restored four-wheeled Metropolitan Railway first-class coach number 353 and the Bluebell Railway's ex-London Transport four-coach Chesham set, with Metropolitan Railway Bobo electric locomotive Sarah Siddons bringing up the rear. This formation took 75 passengers from Earl's Court to Moorgate via Baker Street. This and other mainline excursions in 2013 celebrated the 150th anniversary of the formation of the Metropolitan Railway. Met 1 was due to be used on the Steam Back on the Met event in May 2013. Unfortunately, she failed with a hot big end bearing on Saturday, the 25th of May 2013. The crew spotted the problem during the 1515 run from Harrow to Amersham on the 25th of May, when double-heading with Great Western Railway 9466. Met 1 returned at slow speed to Ruslip Depot to allow recertification work to be undertaken. Great Western Railway 4500 class 262 Prairie tank engine number 5521, painted as London Transport L150, ended up filling in for Met 1 at the event for the next few days. Met 1 did manage to successfully complete an overnight test in the early morning of the 25th of May from Ruslip to Amersham and return. Met 1 continued to run at the Buckinghamshire Railway Centre and other heritage railways throughout the 2010s, and even double-headed with 9466 on the main line again in 2017. On the 22nd and 23rd of June 2019, Met 1 steamed along a stretch of the District Line as part of a season of celebrations to mark the 150th anniversary of the opening of the District Railway in 1868. Rolling stock included former Metropolitan Railway District Coach number 100. This event was billed as being probably the last time a heritage steam train would ever be seen in central London on the Underground due to the impeding installation of a new signaling system on the network. Sometime in 2019, Met 1 suffered some kind of mechanical problem at the Buckinghamshire Railway Centre, and the centre then made the choice to take her out of service for another overhaul. Today, Met 1 is the centre's flagship engine and is undergoing another overhaul. Due to the amount of locomotive-related projects, it'll likely be a while before we see the Pride of Quainton return to service.